Hey there, I'm Neil. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm the host and producer of Pause and Rewind, the podcast that chats to changemakers, thought leaders, and role models who all share a common goal. They're striving to make the world a more inclusive place. And, let's face it, we need it. Each guest has a unique story when it comes to doing their thing, and we often know who people are in the now, but how much do we really know about them? Pause and Rewind takes a moment to explore the experiences, realisations and relationships in my guest's life that led them to where and who they are now, because everyone loves an origin story. We'll dive into tales, anecdotes and a little of what makes our guests tick. So whether you're here for insights or inspo or simply want to know about your heroes, this podcast is for you. You might never know someone's story, but if you pay attention, you'll hear it, you'll see it and you'll feel it. So, are you ready to pause and rewind? Hey there, Trenton. Welcome to Pause and Rewind. As always, it is brilliant to see you.
Lovely to see you, Neil. How are you? All right?
I'm all right. Yeah, really excited to talk to you. We get to kind of cross paths and work and collaborate and exchange emails, but actually to sit down and have a proper conversation feels really nice.
Yes, lovely. I'm really, really honoured to be here, so thank you.
Thanks for saying yes. I'm going to start with the question that I always kick off every podcast episode with, and that is, what does the world look like for Trenton Tomlinson right now?
Lord, I feel like I've seen enough. It's quite busy right now. I'm done. It's been a pretty mad couple of weeks, and I'm looking forward to the end of this month just because it'll cap the end of a very busy period. But it's looking all right, you know. I'm all right. The Brits was fun. I went back to Manchester for some work. I got to do some work on the Brits this year. I've been planning for some stuff ahead for the year, just for myself. So it's been a really, really busy one. So I'm looking forward to having a bit of a sleep.
I mean, sleep is the optimum goal for everyone at the moment, right?
Really, I don't know what it is anymore.
Okay, well, some is coming.
There we go.
For those that you are a music executive, shine a bit of a spotlight as to your day job, and then if you're happy to share a little bit more about your gay job.
Absolutely. So my day job is label operations manager at Universal Music Recordings, and essentially my job in that for my day-to-day is to ensure that for the UK catalogue for Universal Music, I ensure that from the point of someone having the idea to do something to it then being a real thing, I take it through all the different steps and processes to ensure that we can actually make it. So all these vinyl here is like some stuff I've worked on, most of it's stuff I've worked on, and then some stuff is just I've bought, like there's an Addison Rae one in there. I've not been lucky to work on that, but I'll meet her one day. But we work on, as a team, we're a very small team, we work on all vinyl, all CD, all physical, digital, video formats. So that averages out to about 2,000 to 3,000 releases per year. And we work with a lot of different artists that range from like the Beatles to Girls Aloud to the Spice Girls. And there's been a lot of different things I've been able to do in that, which has been really, really cool. And then my gay jobs, I am chair of our Universal Pride Network. I sit on the Stonewall Leadership Programme for 2026. And I do various other bits and bobs here and there. So there's a thing called the Equity and Justice Advisory Group for the BPI. And the BPI look after the Brits and the Mercury Awards and Ivan Novella's there and the charts. They're a body that looks after labels, and I sit on that board to ensure that we're doing the right and equitable thing for the industry. So fairly busy, which explains why I don't sleep.
How do you balance it all?
When I know, I'll let you know.
Okay, that's often the answer. And I'm 100% with you on all of that. Your job, it does sound incredibly exciting. Like, what do you love most about it?
Do you know what? I think it's a really rare opportunity to be able to work on stuff that you either grew up with or your mum grew up with or your family grew up with, and being a part of that cultural storytelling piece. I think we sit with a lot of artist legacies, and obviously as the biggest catalogue label in the world, we have these stories that we do have to tell. And it's been really great to be able to uncover some stuff. So, for example, whilst we've done a lot of the main ones, like as I said, the artists before and the Rolling Stones and Def Leppard and Thin Lizzy and all them lot, there's a lot of black artists that we never really got to speak about. So I was able to create with some other members of the team and launch a campaign called Black Story, which focuses on our artists that we didn't really talk about a lot. So it was like Linton Kwesi Johnson and Miss Dynamite and Unknown T, who we got to put on vinyl for the first time. There's been a lot of stuff that we've been able to do, which has been first, which has been really, really exciting. So I think it's been a part of understanding there's a wider culture, and as artists have become innovators and creators, sometimes that can go into the world, and then we just forget about it because time moves on and culture moves on. And culture really depends on operations and systems to ensure that these stories are continued to be told and to be preserved and to be respected. So it's been a real honor. And I think that's what I enjoy the most, is having that honor of really honoring legacy and honoring these people that have paved the way for people like me and people not like me to be able to be in certain rooms. So it means a lot.
I mean, I can hear the passion, and I know how passionate you are about what you do. You mentioned your family there. You know, do you come from a background that music is a life force?
I'd say so. I have a lot of very formative memories of me and my mum. My mum, my mum was a single parent, but she worked very, very hard. So I wasn't really able to spend, I guess, a lot of time with her in the same way that some of my friends have with their parents. But I always knew, like, she couldn't pick me up, for example, from school every single day. So I'd go to after school club. But I always knew I'd hear her car because I'd hear the bass line. And I'd hear the bass line through miles away. And I knew that was just my mum coming. I grew up on a lot of R&B, and I grew up on myself for some reason. I was very opinionated as a kid. So I loved a lot of pop music. And I remember one time when I was quite sick, being at home, and mum was like, do you want Lucozade? Do you want paracetamol? What medication do you want to get sick and to get better? Sorry. And I turned around, I was like, can you please buy me the Fame Monster album by Lady Gaga? And she did. God bless her. Love my mum.
Did it help?
Absolutely, they didn't. But, you know, I felt good for an hour or however so. And then I put the next disc in, felt fabulous. And then I was sick again.
It happens. It happens.
Happens.
And in terms of kind of the work you do with the network, you know, that is something that you do on top of your role. And I know how much joy that brings you. I know how many incredible people you get to work with on that. We got to work together recently on a fantastic session focusing on kind of like, you know, queer icons from music, the history of music. But you work with so many other amazing people. And I wonder, is that something that's always been a little bit of you, kind of like getting involved in extra things? Because I know for me, when I look back at my own story, that tendency to put myself forward and to go the extra mile and to get involved has always been there.
When I look back, I definitely do think that there's been elements of me wanting to understand everything that's going on, and to try and understand when I've not necessarily had the experience or the exposure. I've just put myself forward to learn things, and then some things have stuck. So I think a lot of this work throughout my life has stuck, and it's been really fulfilling. Whilst other things you get to learn through experimentation might not really be for you, and that's fine. But there's definitely been an element of me kind of having a finger in many different pies just to ensure that I know how stuff works. And then if I find myself on a day-to-day basis sometimes thinking, if I don't know everything, then I don't know anything. And what I mean by that is there's certain processes, again, in my job, whilst we work on other releases, we also work on processes on my day-to-day. And sometimes if I don't know one bit of a process, then I just feel like I don't know anything. And that one thing could be one sentence, it could be one person, one connecting dot that is actually quite small. But for me, if I don't know it, I feel like I don't know anything, and therefore I can't really help. So I guess being able to go into the bonnet of stuff and understand how things work has always been quite a driving force to understand and also support stuff being good. So I've enjoyed it, but it's bloody tiring, isn't it, Neil?
It really is. Kind of, it's finding that balance of putting yourself out there. There's so much joy that comes from that, you know, and for both of us, I think there's a joy of learning, of community, of seeing the fruits of everything you're doing come together. But yeah, you have to balance it with the mental exhaustion, the overwhelm, the sometimes tendency to lean into burnout. And it's a really difficult balancing act.
Definitely. It's something that I feel like I'm getting better at now, because I'm starting to understand and enjoy what I've done. Where I think in the past, when it's come to, especially with the extra work, it's kind of come from a necessity. There's been a necessity to create spaces which are inclusive. There's been a necessity to provide access to things and accessibility, because I've not necessarily felt that myself, and I've not wanted other people to feel that way. And as I'm getting on now, I feel like I'm actually now starting to sit and enjoy stuff. Like the other day we did myself and some people at Universal, someone called Katie there, we worked on a quiz that was raising money for Stonewall, and it was one of the first times where I actually just sat there and was like, this is fun. And I never really get to have that experience. I'm usually worried about who's there, what's going to happen, is everyone okay, is everyone having a good time? And then in worrying about everyone having a good time, you don't have a good time. So I'm starting to now understand the balance and act between doing what you think is necessary, doing what is necessary, but then also looking at yourself and going, what's necessary for you personally? And that's not a selfish thing. It's actually quite necessary to ensure that you keep on going.
Yeah. Is there an element of maybe tackling a bit of perfectionism in there as well?
God, yeah. It's awful. And I think it's definitely perfectionism a bit of an enemy, because it ruins so many things where you look back and go, someone will turn to you and go, oh, you've done X, Y, Z. And you go, yeah, but ABC wasn't right. And ABC, no one cares about ABC. No one's asked, no one's bothered. But because it's not perfect in your mind, it's a failure, and it's not. So I think again, it's learning that things don't have to be perfect, and intent means a lot more than execution half the time. And as long as you are doing the right thing and doing the work, you are going to get stuff wrong. And I say that I'm gonna mess up something soon, and I'm gonna be very hard on myself. And I'll say mess up, it'll be like I get one word wrong, and I'll cry. But it's
Yeah.
not a big deal. It's fine. I think perfection's nice to aspire to, but I think if you have the grounding and the realism that it's not an end goal or an attainable goal, which I still need to learn, then it's better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that for I really picked up the self-flagellation that came through in what you're just saying, because I'm
Mm.
someone that goes in, if I mess up, I go in really hard on myself
Hmm.
because I want things to be so perfect. And actually, 9 times out of 10, most people don't even realize that it hasn't been.
Hmm.
Because you do, I am really hard on myself. You know, I often joke that I call myself a stupid bitch 72 times a day at least.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's really hard to break those habits.
It's literally like it's something where I understood the purpose of CBT therapy, because you have to tell yourself and remind
Yeah.
yourself of stuff. But it's bloody hard when you've got these self beliefs of yourself of being not enough. But I will remind you, Neil, that you are that bitch, so you're fine. There's not a lot that you're doing wrong at all. I'll
Right
be
back
that
at
voice in
you.
your head.
Right back at you. Always grateful for that. And you spend such a lot of time championing other people. You know, whenever I message you, you always write back saying, "Hey, icon," and it's just it's such a it always puts a massive smile on my face. Showing up is so important, right?
Mm.
And
Mhm.
the world has been crazy for us, particularly as LGBTQ plus people,
Mhm.
and for many other people out there in the world with right wing rhetoric and stuff. How do you take care of yourself through all of that?
I don't want to give an answer again that's like, I'll let you know when I know, because I'm obviously doing something. I'm still here.
Mm.
I feel as though there's a large education piece which just hasn't been done. It's hard to talk about lived experience. It's hard to share lived experience when that's exactly what it is. It's a lived experience, and your experience will be different to somebody else, and your level of tolerance or empathy is different to other people. So I think having that in the back of my head of being like, people are just people, and not everyone's going to have the same wants or needs or desires in terms of the greater good. And sometimes, if you look at their perspective, you're actually against them. And you have to kind of understand that you're not, and your intent is not against anybody, but they feel a threat, and you're seen as a threat to them. Having empathy for somebody that's kind of against your existence feels kind of counterproductive. And I don't think it's having a, a I guess, justification for it and saying, oh, well, you know what? That's just how they are. They're like, boys will be boys. That's it, that whole kind of rhetoric. It's not that. It's understanding that there is a world outside of what we are fed through algorithms. There is a world of what we're fed outside of news, and we have to create our own joy. And that isn't superficial. That isn't fake. That isn't it isn't inaccessible. It is accessible. It just takes a little bit while to find. And so having, I guess, that balance of understanding, again, grounded in your own self, realizing that you aren't causing any harm. If somebody comes to you with a right wing rhetoric, which is so prevalent in everything now, you kind of do have to take it with a pinch of salt and realize that, again, people are people. Everyone's an individual, and how you choose to respond to that is, if you do choose to respond to it, is completely up to you. I have friends who don't really want to get involved in stuff because they just want to exist. They just want to keep on living, keep alive, and therefore they don't really want to get involved in conversations. And I don't think that is I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think some people would and go, well, you're queer or you're black or you're disabled, you should be on the front lines and saying X, Y, Z. It's not really people's responsibility to do that. We have a responsibility to ourselves to be kind and stay alive. And therefore that responsibility manifests in different ways. And I think for me, it's just having the balance of knowing what's there, understanding why they think that way, but then also understanding that there's a lot of other people that don't feel that way. And where there are opportunities to connect and educate, then let's try and find a smart way. But until then, you don't have to engage because it's not healthy.
There is so much in there to dive into in kind of what you've just said. Like, there's so much important stuff in there. Is you picked up on joy and just living, right? And we all need to do that. We all need to have the freedom to do that. And unfortunately, not everyone is granted the freedom to do that. But you're
Hmm.
right. I think that sometimes we don't have to always pick the fight. Some days, if self-preservation is all we've got, then we have to, then we, and when we don't have the energy, sometimes it's okay just to say, do you know what? I'm sitting this one out, and someone else is going to have to pick up the baton, as kind of Lady Phil would
Hmm.
say.
And she is absolutely right. I think there's enough people and there's enough different contexts in the world where there's, it's not that you have to necessarily compare yourself to other people, because then that does become the phrase of a trauma Olympics, where you sit there and go, well, I've had a
Yeah.
hard time, and then someone goes, I've had a harder time. It's not grounded in terms of negating how you feel or negating what's going on with you, but understanding that there is a wider world, a wider context.
Yes.
And if you're feeling something, probably somebody else will feel the same way. Not everything is a fight that you need to fight. And at the same time, in there are privileges that we have in context to other people around the world. And I say around the world, next door to us. It's not so far away from where we are and where we exist. Understanding that when you feel like a marginalized, well, not even feel, when you are a marginalized person, it's hard to kind of go, well, I do have privileges. Because I do. I'm a cis. I appreciate that I'm a black gay man, but I'm also a cis man. So understanding that that's a privilege within itself, unfortunately, in the context, and being able to then use my voice to ensure that I'm supporting non-cis voices, it gives you the context and the balance to be able to, I guess, pick your fight accordingly.
Yes, pick your fights accordingly and know when you should actually step up as well, because there are moments when you'll need to take a step back, but also there are more moments right now where we have the opportunity, the power, the privilege to step up and actually use our voices and actions.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Listen, this has been so good. I'm already so excited to dive into your origin story. With that, Trenton, are you ready to pause and rewind? Here we go. Take me back. Tell me all about little Trenton.
Lord, little me, Lord. I've always been a very inquisitive kid, and I've always been I think I was a very bold kid, but I think that just is a point of not having much life experience. You kind of just exist because why wouldn't you exist? I was very sensitive, and I guess I still am. But I think the way I push myself now is different, obviously, because again, life experience. But I was very sensitive, very confident, which is quite a mix to have, because if you're out there putting yourself into the world and then someone says something back to you and you're like, oh, it's quite a long process of self-healing constantly. I was very, very, very empathetic as a kid, which is something that I look back and think that's quite weird. Because I remember there's a story of this boy that I used to know, and hope he's all right now. But it was our first day of reception, and apparently we were walking into school and he was crying, and I walked up to him, put my arm around him, and then turned to his parents and said I was going to look after him. I must have been 4 or 3. I have no memory of that at all, but that sounds right, that I tried to look out for people, and I was very kind of sensitive to others and about myself, but I wanted to be a performer. I was always dancing, I was always doing stuff. And I remember I don't know what song it was, but I had to go around all the classes and sing it, which looking back now is probably child abuse. But now I can laugh. But Lord, that shouldn't have been allowed to happen. The safeguarding was off, but I love my school. And I love being a kid. I love my school. I love being young. And I loved, it definitely felt like, I look back now and apply the theory of Lazy Town to it. Like, it was definitely a place where I felt I had the purpose. We were learning. I had friends. I didn't have friends. And it was a weird but wonderful time, and I was understanding who I was in the world, and I guess I still am.
You used a sentence there when talking about you don't remember that story, but it makes sense. And I guess the question off the back of that is, do you really resonate with little Trenton still today?
Do you know what's funny? If you would have asked me this, I think like 2 years ago, I would have said no. I think I didn't have a lot of grace or kindness for myself as a younger person. Because you look back, I mean, we all cringe, but cringe is necessary and it's important to grow. And I don't think I gave myself that grace of being able to be that kid. Whereas now I look back and think I'm actually trying to get back to that. I'm trying to get back to that person that was kind of unapologetically, they said what they felt, and they could articulate themselves in a way where they weren't thinking about politics or people or dynamics. They were just themselves. And I essentially felt a lot more free, and I was allowed to be free because my mum was a really supportive mum. I had a really, really great, and I have a really, really great mum. So definitely look back now with a lot kinder eyes, and I resonate a lot more with younger me, because I just think, God bless me, I was a little.
I love that. And actually, when talking on this podcast, it comes up again and again how people, as they age and self-realization and actualization comes into the forefront, is that they do allow themselves to step back into that younger version of themselves that perhaps has been repressed, squashed down. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of us have to do that in our teenage years, whether it's our coming out or just navigating difficult times, in order to survive.
Mm-hmm. You understand how you position yourself in the world through safety, and how you respond to that really does dictate how you maneuver in the world. So I know there's stuff that as I got older, I'm much older, where now I look at, and I'm still unpicking it now, but the stuff where you look back at your behavior and go, oh
Yeah.
God, like that's just a injured or wounded person that just needed a hug or just needed a little word, but you don't know that because you haven't got that self-actualization. So it's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I definitely look back at teenage me with those eyes if someone just needed a
Oh,
hug. Sticking with little Trenton, is there a favorite anecdote that you've heard about yourself from your family?
there's too many, honestly. I'd have to call my mum and ask, but I don't. There's so many things that my mum says about what I was like as a kid, where she's like, she's always been really excited to see the adult I've become because of the kid I am, and it's nice that they're kind of aligned now. I do have a funny story about it. It's not from a family person, though. It's from a friend of mine. We used to have this thing in school
Okay.
called the friendly bus stop. And the friendly bus stop was the friendly bus stop was this bus stop that was designed for, like, if you were in the playground and you had no one to play with, you come to the friendly bus stop, you'd sit there, and one of us would join, and we'd give you toys, and then we'd introduce you to people, and we'd play with you, and then off you go. I ran that like a Navy SEAL. I was on it. I had my schedule. I had my high vis. You couldn't tell me nothing. And my friend said to me, it was really funny because when we were younger, you used to be on the friendly bus stop so people could have friends. Meanwhile, everybody was just making friends in the playground. And I look at that and go, oh, God, like that actually is quite a good summary, because I didn't quite have that. I was quite I grew up in quite a strict household, so I didn't necessarily have the same exposure to things that a lot of my friends did. So that the process of making friends in a playground was a bit foreign to me. So I wanted to be a part of the
Okay.
wider process that helped everybody. Meanwhile, everybody else was just living. And I thought that was quite a funny anecdote, because I look back and go, oh God, I've actually been obsessed with processes since I was too young to know what a process was.
I think that the friendly bus stop needs to be brought back into so many different areas of
Yeah.
life, right? I'm thinking
Yeah.
networking events. I'm thinking networking events when you've got people that are standing there and, and I've been that person at networking events where I'm like, I really want to talk to people, but I don't know, you get in your head. And actually, the friendly bus stop as a concept sounds absolutely wonderful.
Do you know what? When you put it like that, yeah. But at the time, no. At the time,
It
it was
was,
a different thing. It was not. But not looking now. Oh, I'd love it. Because actually, that was really good. I'm on the Stonewall 26 leadership program cohort, and we had a thing where we all introduced ourselves. Where when you walked in, you picked either a 1 or 2 or 3, and a 1 was like, I'm ready to speak. A 2 was like, I'm a little bit shy, but I'll speak. And a 3 was like, I'm really, really shy. And I thought that's quite cool. So it's processed like that, where you sit there with a little tag and a chair, and someone comes up to you and goes, who's an extrovert? Oh, we'll change the game.
absolutely. Yeah. And it is. And I think that people, we obviously show up in different spaces with a different mindset.
Right.
Sometimes I am completely extroverted and super confident, and other times I am I can be quite shy, which sometimes comes as a surprise for people. But actually, something like
Same
that
here.
gives you permission to show up however you're feeling that day.
It's that
Yeah.
accommodation which I think we all really need, and could do with doing for everyone else and other people. I think we don't sometimes, especially when you do have anxiety, you're not able to see that everybody else might be having the same struggle, because it's very, very insular and it's very all consuming. So you don't have the space or the time to go, someone else feels the same way I feel. So being able to have the accommodation to show up how you feel on that day and have the respect for that, it's just needed in every single situation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Love to touch very briefly on teenage years.
Mhm.
What was that like for you? Because I know for many of us, and we've touched on it briefly, so this is why I don't want to go into it. But I wonder what what was the story going on there? What did you make of the world, and when did first realizations around sexuality come to mind?
Yeah. I had an interesting teenage time because, again, I think having quite a strict and protected upbringing, there was a lot of stuff which I didn't necessarily get to understand until a lot later in life. And it wasn't the best time. So I think that's why I have a personality now, is because I had a pretty bad time. So in some ways,
Hey,
I'm
it
thankful
shaped
for
us,
it.
right?
Exactly.
It shapes us. It really does.
And listen, it's a gnarly shape. It's an interesting, pointy shape, but we'll take
I
it.
love that word. I love that word for it. Gnarly.
It's a gnarly shape. Yeah, about sexuality, I do remember I started to understand what something was a bit askew when I was about 13. I think I knew before. I mean, we kind of knew, but the thing is with sexuality is that for a lot of us, everyone knows before we know. So
Yeah.
everyone else, right? It's quite difficult. So when you bear that in mind with experiences and you bear in mind that people kind of have prescribed you before you even know your own name, and then you get older and go, oh shit, they were right. But I think around about 13, I think I started to understand something was going on properly, and it wasn't just like a weird one-off. And then I think around about 15 is when I started to properly come out to people. And I told my best friend, Peace, who I'm still friends with now. And she was like, really? And I was like, don't act surprised. And then I remember, I remember my mom, I told my mom over an episode of EastEnders, just quite an iconic way to do it. It was with Christine and Saeed. Um,
Oh yeah.
I remember I was defending them to my mom. Not that she was slating them, but my mum is of a different era where I guess where she saw gay kisses on television, she was a bit like, and then I was like, don't do that. It was very much a Hilary Duff moment of don't say gay. And we had a good conversation about it. And after that, I came out and now she's the loudest and proudest, the most fierce ally I've ever known. And she works in education. So she was able to kind of shape those young minds to understand that homophobia and transphobia are just not acceptable. But yeah, between 13 to 15 is when I started to realize something was going on. And by 15, I really knew. And it's a weird thing to kind of understand because they're such formative years of which you're not only trying to understand just your sexuality, but you're trying to understand who you are in the world. And you don't necessarily have a lot of people. I know for a fact, I didn't have a lot of people that look like me around me or in situations where I could like turn television on and see myself or read about myself.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't accessible and the internet wasn't, it was there, but it wasn't like it is now. So it's an interesting one. I think it was an interesting time, a gnarly time, but we're here.
We're here. Most of us make it through.
Yeah, exactly.
And it is a tough time. I look back at it now and I know there's quite an age gap between us, but so much of what you said about people labeling you before you even have the language and terminology, people making those assumptions, but also just not knowing where to go with it, figuring out where safety lives in those
Hmm.
moments and who you can speak to safely, engaging what people's reactions. It's bloody difficult to navigate.
So difficult, and it's. I think people all really do forget that that's just one element of your life. That's one element
Yeah.
of who you are. So whilst that might be, I guess, a main thing for people, there's so many other things going on. So it just adds to this context of
Yeah.
people really being high pressured, and it's very all consumed by themselves because they haven't. There's too much going on, and people just need a bit of a support. And as we said before, just a little hug.
Yeah, just a little hug. And it fluctuates, when it comes to your sexuality, the different areas of your identity, and this is where intersectionality really comes into it, is that sometimes it will be the most prominent thing about you, and at
Hmm.
other times it will be the least interesting, most boring. And it's
Hmm.
okay to flip between them and for that to go up and down.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
What were career goals? What did you want to be when you grew up? What was the dream?
Lord, I wanted to be a singer. And
Okay.
I was going to be the next big thing, and you couldn't tell me anything else. Delusion. And then I think I worked for it, and I got signed when I was around about 15, or yeah, I think I was 15. I signed a deal when I was 15, and it was very formative, and it opened up my eyes to the career that I have now. But I was going to be this huge like superstar, and you couldn't tell me anything. I used to wear these sunglasses to school every day. And like that's why when Lady Gaga came out, I was like, "Oh my god, me!" But no, that wasn't normal. That's not to be supported. But my poor mum did Home and Bargain glasses. Shout out Home and Bargain. But it opened up my eyes to the business and to contracts and to legalities and to laws, and it kind of was my segue into the industry.
Yeah. When you look back to those early dreams and ambitions now, is there still a part of you that would still like to go down that route?
It's a funny one because it's something that I've kind of dabbled in and out of in terms of creativity. It's one of those things where I was speaking to a music manager once and she was a bit like, that never really goes. And I definitely struggled working behind the scenes with the idea that I was either one or the other. So you can't be both. And then I think when you actually get into the industry, you realize you can literally be anything you want. And that was a big moment. So there's moments where I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to be creative again. And then I get to be creative again. But for now, I'm good.
No, you're good. Okay. but stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
And we are shaped by our failures as much as our successes, right? You know, I think it's something that we really need to lean more into. I love Elizabeth Day's podcast, How to Fail,
Mm-hmm.
because the premise is all around that. And, you know, we're shaped by those moments. Is there a moment that felt like a failure at the time that was the making of the Trenton we know today?
God, yeah. I had to think then. I was very visceral. I mean, there's two. I think definitely that my deal not working out the way it was supposed to work out in my head. That was a big moment because I was very, very young, and I remember my mum thinking it's a very real thing. And I mean, we look at media now, and it's not far off. But she really thought I was getting trafficked. She thought it was like a real ring I was going into, and because we don't have a musical kind of connection. We didn't have any connection to the industry. So we didn't have really anyone to be like, what is this 360 deal and why should he sign it? We just did it. I look at that now, and that was something where I was going to be the next big thing and everyone was going to know who I was, and it was going to be amazing. I was going to be doing all kinds, and it didn't work out. Had I have not had that experience, then I wouldn't have the career I've got now. So I think that was a big one because I was so young, and I really fed into the delusion of the industry, not realizing that it is kind of smoke and mirrors, and it's very rose tinted to have that view. There's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes that you need to do, and it set up for me to, at the time, I was ready to just kind of give up everything and go and work in Asda doing tills, which there's nothing wrong with that at all. It is a job, but for somebody that had the ambition to take over the world, to then want to just be behind the scenes of retail, it's quite a stark difference of where they were. But had I have not had that experience, then I wouldn't have been able to have met all the amazing artists I've met now through my career, and I've not been able to have ghost vocaled or wrote on certain things. I wouldn't have been able to have had the career in inclusion to making sure that people don't feel the way or have to feel the way I have felt. And particularly if I've got a say in that or a voice in that, I don't want anyone to ever feel the way that I felt. So that I'd say that that's quite a formative thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like, yes, it must have been a massive blow at the time, you know, not to take away from that. But the fact that it didn't leave you permanently jaded or scarred, that you've still found a way to put that into what you're doing right now. I think that's brilliant to walk away from that experience and think, yeah, do you know what? That hurt at the time, but it's really been the making of me.
Definitely. It was an awful experience, just because I guess, again, no connection to music, no connection to the industry, so we didn't really know what we were doing. And the guy that signed me, he had signed Macy Gray and Linkin Park and Limp Bizkit and Korn. So it was kind of like, I'm going that way. He was based in LA. We didn't have money for studio time. We didn't have money for music. It's expensive. It was expensive then. It's still expensive now. When you're from a single parent household, you are thankful that you get food. So did we have money for the studio? No. And it was at the time absolutely devastating. But thank God it happened, because I think I wouldn't have had the experience I've had, or the career I've had, or just the personality I've got. I really think I would have been an absolute nightmare. Bullying works.
Do you think much has changed in the music industry since then? You said maybe not so much in terms of the money and it still being expensive. Do you think a lot has changed in terms of the care and support that's given? Because we hear a lot of rhetoric around this, right? Particularly when it comes to young artists, talent shows in particular, that there isn't the support, the nurturing. Has much changed?
As someone that works at Universal, I would say absolutely. I'd say there's a lot more that has been done to ensure that people have not only autonomy but literacy in what they're doing. And it's been really great to be a part of some initiatives where I sat on Universal's task force for meaningful change, and to see the work that as a team that was able to be done to ensure that people had access to therapy and to understanding their finances and understanding what they shouldn't blow their advances on and what an advance is. That wouldn't have existed years ago. There's definitely been a change in how institutions look at their systems and their operations to ensure that artists are catered for. However, the problems with the industry are quite culturally based and they're deep rooted, and they're also quite top down. So it's difficult to influence that much change when not much has changed on those levels. So I think it's definitely, for an accessibility point, it's a lot easier now to make music. It's a lot cheaper to make music, and it's a lot easier to get your music out there into the world. But in terms of a infrastructure for an industry, whilst things have improved and there's still room for improvement, I would be lying if I said, oh, it's amazing now and artists are really looked after and really taken care of, because we only have to look at artists like, Ray, for example, who didn't have the best time. And she is not the only one that's had that exact experience, but she's the one that people have listened to. It again, people are people, and situations are very individualistic, but it's getting to a point where I think more considerations are being done. And particularly as a creative industry, you'd like to think that there is a care for that stuff, which is why, again, sitting on the BPI's Equity and Advisory and Justice Advisory Group, and you're able to look at these structures and say what would actually be equitable and beneficial, not only for artists, but for the industry. So it's definitely changing, but is it changed? To be confirmed.
To be confirmed. Yeah, there's so much. We hear so much, right, when it comes to the way artists are treated, and also things like downloads and artists not kind of being, receiving the payment that they should be paid in terms of royalties for their creativity and their art. And so, yeah, I can imagine that there's still a lot of work to be done.
Definitely a lot of work to be done in a lot of different areas.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder, is there someone who has shaped you the most along the way?
Me mum.
You know, I had a feeling you were going to say that.
I'd love to sit here and be like, this person or that person, but shout out to the mums, lah. Like, I don't think me as a kid, as much as I was very loving and very sensitive, I don't think I was an easy kid to understand. I don't think kids are easy, full stop. And I think, particularly for my mum, who come from absolutely nothing, no qualifications, no background, and extreme poverty, and situations which are just kind of unthinkable for kids now and back then, for her to have kind of created a life for both herself and her two kids to enable them to kind of have a career and a life is something that I'll never be able to thank her for enough and be able to be grateful enough for. And we talk about it a lot because I just kind of think statistically she shouldn't be where she is, and me and my brother shouldn't be where we are because of the wider patterns around single parent households and black ethnic minority households and how I guess things are shaped. But like I ran the friendly bus stop like a Navy SEAL, she ran her household like a Navy SEAL, and it was very, very, we knew what we were allowed to do. She only had to look at us once and we knew we were wrong. We had to be quiet. But without her, I definitely wouldn't have the outlook I have now, the experience that I have now, the outlook that I have on wanting to do stuff right and do stuff as good as possible and make life as better as possible, which is what my mum did she became a director of safeguarding inclusions, which is something that she didn't have any training in. She didn't have any form of, she didn't go to university for that. No one kind of did that for her. Her life just shaped her in a way where she was like, I want no one to ever experience what I've experienced. And I guess unintentionally, I've taken that on myself and gone, this stuff that I've gone through, I don't want anyone to have to experience what I've experienced. So definitely my mum. Shout out to my mum.
Yeah. I'll big up. What's your mum's name?
Monica.
Big up Monica. And last time I saw you at
Monica.
Queer Britain, actually, you were heading up to Liverpool to spend time with your mum around your birthday. And so I can really feel the bond in the way that you speak about her.
Yeah. And you know what? It's funny because we haven't always had that relationship. And I always like to preface that. I grew up, I don't want to say scared of my mum, but I was scared of my mum. I don't think that's a bad thing, but I think I'd hear like my friends speak to their parents. They were like, shut up, mom. And I thought if I said that to my mum, or if I did I didn't go out, I didn't have sleepovers and whatnot. There was definitely, we didn't have the closeness and the understanding that we have now. But I look back at that time and think, had I not had that structure, had I not had that routine, had I not had that person looking out for me, life could have been very, very different as the product of a lot of our choices and the choices made around us. So very thankful for her, despite the fact that now we are incredibly close and I love her a lot and I've always loved her a lot. But now she's definitely taken on the role as like friend and mother, whereas before she was mother and provider. And I don't necessarily think that was a bad thing, but it's important to preface because I think people sometimes see our closeness and go, what a lovely relationship. It wasn't always like that. I've always had a deep respect for my mum and that's never changed, but she's had to learn her life and I've had to learn life alongside her learning her life, and I'm thankful for what we've got now.
I would love to know what your thoughts on this. Does happiness and success, and I'm very mindful with this question that we're still young, does happiness and success look and feel how you thought it would? And I imagine that it perhaps doesn't given your experience and what you've gone through. So I wonder then, do you feel happy and successful with where you are now?
It's one of those things where I found myself as of late. I guess through a lot of the experiences that I've had in life, I've definitely hidden away and been quite private with the stuff I do. So the idea that I'm even able to speak to you now is, if you would have asked me a few years ago if I would be doing this, fat chance. So it's a huge honor to be here, but I don't take it lightly because it's something where I'm like, I would have never have dreamed of speaking about myself in a public space before. So it's one of those, I've got to find another way to say it. It's one of those things. But it's one of those things where I look at my career now today and I look at stuff I've done. And I guess for the longest time, I've had a bit of tunnel vision and I've been working towards a specific goal. And what that goal was has changed as the years have gone on. So I've not really had a moment to look back at the things that I've achieved in the meantime. I'm starting to now understand that I've done a fair bit and I've got a long way to go. And I'm really thankful for what I've been able to achieve, what I've been able to fail at the same time. But I'm 29 and I've got years to achieve what I think is the opus of what my existence is. Until then, I still have time to get it wrong and experiment and change that. So it's only as of, I guess, the last couple of years where I've really started to become or accept that I've done. Hello, Alexa. Rude. This is my conversation. It's only over the past couple of years that I've started to really understand that I have been capable of
I'm
doing.
not quite sure how to help you with that.
Me neither, love. Just let me know when you know, because I don't know. Still trying. It's only as of the... Sorry, Neil.
Don't be. I'm keeping it in because it's pure jokes. I don't know how to help you with that. Yeah. Cheers. Story of my life.
It's on me life, babes. Thanks, though. Yeah, it's one of those things where I'll find another phrase. I find that I've not necessarily gave myself the grace or the kudos of, you've done all right there. And it wasn't until I've had to like write my bio for certain things, or I've had to look at my CV and I've gone, I've done quite a lot. And it's exciting because I've got more to do. So happiness is a pursuit of that. It's somewhere in there. The idea of it's only starting to form now as something that I can actually achieve. But in my career, am I where I thought I would be? No. But am I happy with it? It's all right. And I like that.
Yeah. And all right is actually fine. You know, we knock it, but actually thinking, yeah, do you know what? I'm all right now. There's a lot to be said for that. I love hearing that. And I think there's so much in there around finding your voice and realizing who you are, and whether that's reframing where you thought the world was going to be, whether that's tapping back into little Trenton and giving yourself the grace and the permission that you need to pat yourself on the back. A lot of that comes down to finding your voice and your standing in the world. And at 29, I have to say, like, I was definitely not in that position. You know, it took me till kind of my late 30s to really find that. And so, yeah, it's a really exciting journey for you.
That's trauma for you, but yeah, it is an exciting journey.
Hell yeah. Oh, hell yeah. No, I mean, you listen, we've got to make the most of it and kind of harness it how we can. Looking back so far, what are you most proud of to date?
That's a very big question. I think firstly, probably that I'm still here. That's pretty cool. I don't think I expected to still be here. So that's nice, I guess. That's a celebration. What am I proud of? I guess that I'm in the career that I thought I was going to be. I'm in the industry that I thought I was going to be. I'm actually someone that used their degree for their career, which is insane.
Well, hey, I mean, unheard of these days.
You know what I mean? Like, honestly, but again, tunnel vision. I wanted to go to that university. I went to LIPA and I wanted to go to that university since I was 5 years old. And I got in. Thank God they accepted me. And it was a necessary journey for me to get to where I am now. I think something I'm really proud of is being able to use the resources or the connections or the spaces that I have to try and create equitable foundations for people. And I can only really best analogize that with a story of when I was working on a panel and I was getting the speakers together, and we were trying to understand who we could speak to. So we got somebody to host the panel and we had a briefing call with them and we had a really lovely chat with them. And then they were like, okay, now we get to the subject of fee. So we basically said, let us know what you want to get paid and we'll look at our budget. And they sent us a quote for how much they thought they were worth. And it was like, I want to say like £60. And we'd budgeted for them to get £1,000 for their time. So being able to turn to that person and go, thank you so much for this considered offer. Really appreciate it. Unfortunately, we're going to reject that. We're not going to pay you £60. We're going to pay you £1,000. Being able to have that person, I guess, have their worth increased, and then being able to continue that work of making people either get royalty checks or paychecks that they weren't getting before, or opportunities that they weren't getting before, or visibility that people weren't getting before. That's been a really proud thing for me to be able to look back at and go, having that impact in people's lives where it's beneficial to them and it's about them, it's about their standing and their equity and what they've got, is something that I'm, I guess, trying to give myself some kudos, but it's not really about me. It's more so that I'm proud that I've been able to facilitate those spaces and those conversations to be had.
The House of Happiness is London's ultimate sober clubbing extravaganza. We're led and delivered but created for all, whether teetotal, sober curious or just taking a booze snooze. We love a day rave, and on a Saturday afternoon you can expect banging house tunes, DJs on decks, dancers on podiums and a fully stocked alcohol-free bar. Flamboyant, bold, with a glitter station to boot. We're all about safe, inclusive fun, and we even have a pre-meet so that you can make new sober buddies before you hit the dance floor. Grab your tickets from Instagram now at House of Happiness Official, and we'll see you on the dance floor. Are you ready for some quickfire questions?
Let's go.
Let's go. What album, book or movie has had a lasting impact on you? And I imagine that's a really difficult question for someone in your industry to answer.
It is. I'll go with album because I'll stay on theme. I remember there was an album by an artist called Kimbra, and Kimbra was the female vocalist on the Gautier song Somebody I Used to Know, and she has an album called Vows, and I remember listening to it and being like, this is what I want to do. And I didn't listen to anything else for a really solid long period of time. I just got really lost in it because she was weird, and she still is weird, and she was doing all these different sounds and genres and all these different, she's incredible. And I just remember that was the first time I listened to something and was like, this is possible, because I don't know who this girl is, I don't know what she's done, but her album is phenomenal. And I got lost in her world of B-sides and live stuff and stuff she hadn't released. And I opened my eyes to a world of fandom that was niche, but self-serving in a way where I wasn't just kind of liking something because it was cool or liking something because I liked it. I liked it because there was a real ethos behind it. And she's still going, she's still fabulous, and I still love her a lot. But I just remember listening to that album the first time and being like, it's possible. Like this, who is this and what's going on? So probably that Kimbra Vows.
Yeah, that song is such a wicked song as well, and she was perfect for it. I heard that Katy Perry was originally meant to do that duet.
I feel really sad about stuff like that because there's so many songs where somebody else should have sung it. Imagine a world where Britney Spears sang Toxic. She did. Imagine a world where Kylie Minogue sang Toxic.
Yeah, yes.
Bloody hell. But there's so many things like that. Nicole Scherzinger famously has been so badly skirted out of songs. We Found Love. She didn't sing that, but that went to her first. There's Titanium, I think, went to her. She didn't sing it. There's so many artists like that where they didn't sing the song, but with Kimbra, thank God she sung that song.
Yes. Yeah. She's absolutely nailed it. It's a beautiful song. What's a saying you live by and one that you'd put in the bin?
By the way, that wasn't really fast paced. I'm so sorry. I've just made it
not at
10
all.
miles an hour. Let me give you a thesaurus of words about an answer. A phrase I'd live by, probably do what matters now. And a phrase I put in the bin is that is the way it is.
Yeah, so close to mine. Mine is it is what it is.
Yeah, I'll go with that instead.
Yeah. What's been the best adventure of your life so far?
I probably moving to London. I think that was an adventure I'm still on, still doing, and still going through. It's been, to repeat the word gnarly, it's been very hard, very different to the north. But yeah, I'd say probably that's been one of the most fruitful and important journeys, has been just moving to London.
Yeah. Do you miss the north?
Oh, every day. It's the Scouse dolls. We're talking about the Scouse dolls. All the dolls. But there's something about the north where, especially, I think that's why the Brits this year was so important, and the Mobos being in Manchester and being in Newcastle last year. There's been a bit of snobbery towards the north in the music industry, and they forget that a lot of artists are from the north, and a lot of great art and great things come from culture that isn't defined by the South. So there's a way of being where even when you're waiting for the bus, someone will speak to you. There's a certain niceness where sometimes I'll speak to people and they'll either think that I am insane or I'm flirting with them, and I'm not. I'm just Scouse, and I'm not that into you. I'm sorry. It's a bizarre one. I miss it a lot. I'm very proud to be a Scouser, and if you find a Scouser that isn't proud to be a Scouser, they're a wool. You don't know what that means.
They're what?
They're a wool.
It is so friendly up north. I was recently in Harrogate, and it was so incredibly friendly.
Yeah. There's a friendliness that just it doesn't travel down south.
Yeah, I having been in London for a long time, I do think there are moments that it does. There are friendly people, but as a whole, it's quite an aggy place a lot of the time.
Well, that's it. I think being able to have met people like yourself, and there's been a handful of people where you go, oh, there are actually like nice people here. Is that an everyday occurrence? No.
No, no, and actually not on the
Yeah.
scene. Particularly, I find the scene, and particularly London, also Brighton. It's really clicky. It's
Yeah.
actually not that friendly. If particularly actually if you're not wasted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And thank God you've made the spaces you've made to accommodate people that don't want to get wasted, because I've definitely fell into that. I've found myself in the past, the drunker I've been, the more I've not wanted to be somewhere. And
Yeah.
that's not really changed as I've gotten older. The more wasted I get, the more I did not want to be there. But for some reason, I felt
Yeah.
I had to be there. So there definitely is a scene where there's specific spaces where you're like, nah, that's just not for me. And that's all right.
Yeah, yeah. I am going to get you on the House of Happiness dance floor at some point.
Mm-hmm. Get me on 1-2 step.
What 3 words would you use to describe you and your origin story?
I would probably trying my best.
Trying my best.
Mm-hmm.
Take 3 words. Let's fast forward a little bit. What exciting things do you have coming up?
So Universal are nominated for a Gadio Award for Pride Network
Yes.
of the Year, which is very exciting. We're up against some wonderful people. A lot of times when people talk about nominations and awards, it's very much like, it's such an honor to be nominated, and it's bullshit. But in this instance, the recognition of the work that gets done, particularly as one of the Universal's first ERGs to get a nomination for an award externally, it's a big deal to have been acknowledged in that way. So I really don't take that very lightly, and I'm looking forward to going back into Manchester, which I've been in and out of for the past couple of weeks. There's some other stuff going on, which will be announced when it gets announced, but I think I am just excited to try my best.
Try your best. Try your best. And you are smashing
Yeah.
it. You're smashing. What
Thank you.
brings you joy?
True joy is I love my people, but getting to see my niece is something that I can't really put into words how much that girl means to me. I think
Yeah.
I found myself reframing my life a lot and looking at stuff that it's my brother's daughter, but I sit there and go, is that something that I'd be like happy to explain to Ivy one day that I've done? Is that something that I'd be happy to explain to my niece, that it existed this way? And getting to see her live her life and her creativity through her eyes has just been really reawakening. And it's also nice because I get to spend time with her and then give her back. So that's always a lovely thing as an uncle. But I think she's very inquisitive. She loves to dance. She loves to ask questions and understand things. And that was me as a kid. So being able to be that person that I needed as a kid, to sit there and go, this is why this is this. And then they ask you so many questions and you go, no or yes. And you just talk to people. I talk to her in a way that you would have appreciated when you were young, and you can see that she gets it. That's brought me a lot of joy to just be an uncle. And I never really thought that would be the case. I don't know why. I didn't really expect to experience it the way I've experienced. Obviously, I love her regardless of anything, but I think just being able to see life through a pair of eyes which are so close to yours, and you get to kind of be a part of their safety ecosystem of understanding what the world can and can't be, and to let her know that she's limitless has been a real honor that I, again, don't take lightly. So that's a lot of joy, spending time with my niece.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I bet you make a wicked uncle.
I give it a go, I tell you what, I'm good with the dolls. Mm-hmm. That's my forte.
Do you have any practical takeaways for anyone wanting to either maybe go into inclusion, create an inclusive space, or just generally, get involved?
Just get involved. I think a lot of times I've been victim to it, where you don't want to do the wrong thing, so you don't do anything. And I'm not one of those people that takes the stance that if you don't do anything or you're silent, then you're complicit with what's going on. Because not everybody needs to speak on every single subject. Not every single person needs to speak on it. It's completely fine to just be quiet and mind your business in times, as long as you know how to show up in meaningful ways to show support. And you don't know that if you're constantly talking and you're constantly taking up space for people that actually you can learn from. It's one of those things where a lot of inclusion work does speak to your ethos as a person, and you have to understand what makes you tick and what doesn't. So I know, for example, that a lot of people have gone, oh, yeah, well, you should work in HR or you should work in recruitment. And it's like, no, because then that changes the goalpost. I'm looking after them as according to the rules and the governance that I'm given. If you're able to take your morals and your principles and put them on to anybody else, and if they said them to you from them, you understand what they're saying. I want to stand for X, Y, Z. If someone were to say that to you and you agreed with it, and you could understand where they're coming from, just do it. Like, show up, listen, speak when you can speak or you feel comfortable to speak, and understand that you're not always going to get it right. And that's the attitude that I have with everything. I think when it comes to any form of inclusion, whether that be race or gender or sexuality or whatever, the fear of saying the wrong thing is a very real thing, but also the fear of not really asking the right questions stops you from learning a lot, and your intent is the most important thing. So as long as your intent is solid or morals are in line, ask. How can you just get involved? And if that means being quiet for years and saying nothing but learning and taking in what you can, if that means asking uncomfortable questions of yourself and not feeling particularly happy with or satisfied with the answers you get, it's kind of part of learning. And I think if you do feel comfortable, then you're probably not learning, or you're probably not in a good space to be in that space. You're not in a good mindset or in a good surrounding to be in that space effectively, because if you're sat there comfortable and thinking, well, yeah, I'm fine, probably not. And there's something that you're not acknowledging. So having the space to be uncomfortable, but having the space to also have the questions and having the time to know what's worth your time and what's not will take time. It takes trial and error, but just start.
Yes. Yeah, you've got to start somewhere. There's so much in there that comes up regularly. Embracing discomfort, again, action over perfection, showing up, so important. I can't believe we're already at the final question. And to close out, do you have any words of encouragement or wisdom for anyone out there to help them get to wherever they're going?
If you're listening to me, God help you. Life is hard and people are hard and situations are hard, but that doesn't mean that you have to be hard. You don't have to be a result or a direct reflection of the surroundings around you. You can implement an action change. You can be what you need to be and what you desire to be. And it's important to realize that. I think in trying to understand how things work around you, you can kind of put stuff off for tomorrow, but you don't realize that later you're not buying yourself any time. You're going to get to a point where there's no time for you to do anything. As long as people are kind to themselves and kind to other people, then it's kind of really all that matters. So as long as your principles and you're grounded in kindness, then I don't think there's a lot that people can't do. And I also will say that there's a lot of community around you that I know for a fact I've only really started to build over the past couple of years, because you're scared. People are scary. Things are scary, and people seem really, I guess, either accomplished or they know what they're doing or cliquey or whatever. There are some really, really great people out there that do care and will care about you and care about how you feel. And if you don't find them, you will. You just got to keep on trying. So all we can do is try, and your intent is important, and be kind to yourself and other people. Hope that's encouraging, but if it's not, good luck to you.
Super encouraging. And just to say thank you on a personal level and on a community level for being one of those people. Thank you for saying yes. And I love the fact that you said, you reflected and said a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have been the person sitting speaking on a podcast and sharing who I am in a public space. And I'm so glad that you're able to step into that person, because what you bring to our community and beyond is so valuable, and I appreciate you massively.
I appreciate you, Neil. Thank you very much. That's a lovely thing to say. Thank you.
Thanks for saying yes, and can't wait to see you soon.
See you soon.
Cheers.